When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode. Maybe I'm on what's going through my mind right now. I'm thinking, like you said, people don't think they matter in the workforce. Why show up? They have no identity. If they have there's no why. Why should I go? A friend of mine calls it go work for the big man. Why? I want to work for me. I don't work for the man. And then I got my friend, good friend Barbara. She's like a sister to me. It's Southern California, and she is, she's working hard. She's working 70 hours a week just to pay the bills in Orange County to be next to her little grandson and granddaughter now. And she's working her rear end off, and she's doing 70 hours a week working. That's 70, and she's just pushing really hard. And it's like her generation, that mental mindset is still there. I want to get busy. I want to get back to work. And I talked to a buddy of mine. He said, Mark, do you know how old I am? Like, well, like 20s, you're like 40. I'm 87. I'm still working out of the gym 5 days a week. Like, mindset.
It is mindset. So powerful, isn't it? Age is really a mental state, not right. It's really a mental state. People kept asking me, like you were kidding, when am I going to retire?
Sorry, didn't mean to pinch you.
But the word itself, Mark, right, is interesting, right? Retire. It's like I'm going to step back. And what? Well, I'm retired. I can do the things I always wanted to do. Wow, that's always intriguing to me. What the heck does that mean? What did you not do when you were living for 55, 65 years? What did you not do? And why did you not do it? I'd be asking that question, right? Because I guarantee you that vacuum there will be filled. It'll be filled by drinking or watching TV or trying to find meaning in walking to the mailbox every day. Right? It's retire. It should be refire is what I said at the beginning. It's refire. You're looking, and by the way, business people should do this every day. Mm-hmm. I'm going to look at the assets under my purview, under my control, and make sure they're adequately deployed to the mission, whatever that mission is. Sounds like I was an armed serviceman there for a second. I don't look at assets under my control, make sure they're oriented, directed, a focal point toward the mission, right? Every day, because things change. The greatest constant in life is change. So I need to do that every day. Who do you know that does that looks at every day as possibility and then looks at what they have in their control to create positive outcomes that matter to their world, which includes the company they're working for, the people around them who are impacted by their work or lack of work. You got to care. It's got to be part of your worldview of caring for others. And you will show up for that meeting on time because you care about others. You see what I'm saying? There's a certain synergy of core values that operate. We have a civil society. The thing I always laugh at every day is when I come to a traffic stop. Why do I stop? Don't tell me it's because the cop might pull me over. No. We know there's not enough cops for the amount of traffic stops. We know, like winning it's like, this is, the cops catching me statistically would be very rare if I just decided to run that light. Why do you see people going 75 miles an hour in a 55 mile zone? Because statistically, they know there's not a cop around every corner. So what keeps the other guy going the speed limit, the other guy testing the boundaries of civility in the law.
Pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries. That's human nature.
I once had a boss who basically said rules are made to be broken. You've heard that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Rules are made to be broken. Interesting. And the problem with aphorisms like that is they have a little bit of truth in them.
Right.
They aren't the truth, but they have a little bit of truth in them. I mean, you could look at all the people who've broken out of a marketplace. You know, if I told you 25 years ago, oh, in fact, we should do this for the security market, by the way.
Yes. Okay.
Here's an interesting thought experiment. Ready? I want you to deploy this thought experiment to security, but I'm going to let you do it and then we'll have fun talking about it. So 25 years ago, you and I are in a bookstore doing what we love to do. We're browsing. We're reading the reviews. We pick out a book. We stand in line. We buy our book. We drive back home. We put it down, right? All interesting. Then someone one day says, why do we need bookstores? or I love going to the store, picking out an album, driving back, putting it on my spin and listening to it. And someone says, do we really need records anymore? Or someone says, I'm in New York City. I'm standing in the rain. I'm trying to flag down taxis. Do we really need taxis anymore? So now let's take that thought experiment for a second. Do we really need security anymore? Tell me where you would go with that now. I am now putting security in the category of bookstores, music, and taxis, just for a second. And we're doing it as a thought experiment, not because we're saying that security is no longer relevant. Music is still relevant. Books are still relevant under a different form, even on a Kindle. And taxis are still relevant under a different form called Uber and Lyft. So all I'm asking you to do for a second is, wait, this thing we do? And before I got on, I was having some fun writing down all the different little truisms of our industry, our security industry. Mark, you'll recognize the 7 layers of operational security, or the 3 C's of security, or the 5 phases of the security life cycle, or, right? All right. And I suddenly say, I don't care. I want you, Mark. I'm going to hire you. I'm the CEO. I'm going to hire you to reinvent security. I don't want you going to all the books you have in your ASIS library. I want you to reinvent security for this company, like we've reinvented the music marketplace, the book marketplace, the taxi cab marketplace. I want you to reinvent it. What would you do? And by the way, it's okay to say, I don't know, but it's a great question, isn't it?
It's so thought-provoking because there's a million things I would do.
Okay.
And I don't think I have enough time in the podcast, or that would be probably a Joe Rogan 3-hour-long discussion.
And it would be fun to get others in on that too. Maybe we should do, kind of a seminar series where we want to reinvent this notion of security. And and I've been trying to tease that out lately, by the way, in one of my little
corners.
Yeah, I can't help myself. I think it's ripe for reinvention. Organizationally, with technology coming along, I think it's ripe for reinvention.
I think, we're starting to see artificial intelligence. Look at everything that's happening with, I see more posts on LinkedIn for analysts, intel, gathering type of positions that I do for the actual physical security executive protection agent. And, kudos to Object for what they're doing with Fred Burton and Chuck Randolph and Lucas himself are leading over there in Talas over there. And they're doing some phenomenal thing. That's where Ron and I met over at the Ontic Summit last year. And there's so many things changing. You got cyber, it's going to explode. And, we have, China opening up. You have supply chain issues coming. We have an inflation, fuel prices exploding. We can't keep the planes in the air for business travelers to travel. And I was talking to Rob Lamb the other day. He's a good friend of mine with Blackwater. We're just talking offline. And he goes, "Oh, did you hear about all the planes being grounded?" I'm like, "No, what happened?" He goes, "Well, they're claiming that it was an electrical outage. But you and I both know they have generators that are designed to reboost the power grids of those airports. So that's false. And I really think it was a cyber attack. And the FAA doesn't want to admit it. And so oh, really? So we have cyber, we have infrastructure being affected in transportation at airports. It doesn't take much to cripple America, and our enemies know that. And I think there's so many more adversaries than just what we see on the news that we don't hear about or see that are little ghosts in the near distant future that we haven't seen even arise yet. And when they do arise and pop their heads up, we're going to go, "Oh, shoot, what do we do about this risk assessment threat ourselves? We've never seen this before."
I think, I started in business when the only thing around was mainframes. Okay. We didn't have many microcomputers yet. It was all mainframes. And back then, there weren't app stores for mainframes.
App stores.
So if you had a mainframe, sooner or later, you'd have an IT department writing programs to help out finance, HR. Let's write our own programs. The old, why buy it if we can build it? Because then it's ours. Right. That went on for years, by the way. And they were all written in obscure software languages that I say obscure today, like COBOL, Fortran, right? And literally what we found out the other day, if you're bringing up that incident, is this is a 30-year-old program. It's a series of cobwebs by this point.
Old software technology design.
It's spiderweb stuff, right? It's all over the place, right? And so it's and so they talked about a file that was corrupted, right?
Okay.
Well, they have in this program that's been amended and extended over the last 30 years. They have contractors coming in going, "There's no one coming out of school who understands COBOL anymore. Do you understand COBOL?" And the guy's probably 55 years old, right? No, it's great. But many of our government programs are written in that. The utility industry is rife with that. So all this critical infrastructure that runs our country, sorry, citizens of the U.S., you haven't run your country like a business. You haven't updated, you haven't expanded, you extended, you didn't write, you elected congressmen who can only stay on the surface of things, taxes or no taxes, but don't really have a understanding of the networked infrastructure that runs the country and runs business. All they think of taxes, no taxes, right? And it's we vote in leadership that we deserve, right? So,
boom, there you go, folks. Your voting matters, especially like if we're not upgrading our software for FAA, for our transportation businesses. So business leaders can get to work, get to meetings, and make things happen and flow, it's all cause and effect.
The good news, there is some. The good news is our adversaries are facing the same problem, right? Right? They have as much ignorance about this as we do, and yet they also are autocratic. So the autocratic guys can go, wow, that shiny little toy AI, we can take advantage of Western thought around privacy and freedom because we don't have any of that here. And we can test out AI on our population and get away with it. And so they have the world's best petri dish to experiment with these leading edge technologies. And so, yeah, they kind of have a first mover advantage in that. And plus they stole all our IP out of our universities and everything for years without any consequences. So yeah, we have a security issue in this country. And a part of it will be how well we as security leaders embrace this new technology coming down the line. Because it is here. It is here. It can't be Luddites being the fairy tale people who looked at the Model T coming down the street and said, no, we want to be on horses the rest of our life, right? We can't just say we're not doing AI. We're going to do AI. Every human tool we've created can be used for good or evil. We've got to figure out a good way to use AI.
Now, if I'm a CSO, Chief Security Officer, looking at the future of 2023, and my CFO tells me, oh, you got to cut your budget back. Does that conversation happen a lot lately?
Well, I was kind of astounded recently to hear from my insider CSOs. I shouldn't be surprised either. That's bad on me, but because this is an old story. They were talking about different events they could go to and a recognition that their travel budgets have been cut. Their travel, did you catch that? The so-called
travel budgets.
C-level officer VP's travel has been cut. Just get your arms around that for a second, right?
For 2023?
Yeah, I can't spend $500 going to an event or $1,000 because I may be C-level or VP, but I have to cut back on my budget, right? So
what the heck is that all about? They're supposed to protect their company's brand and infrastructure.
Well, hold on. So let's go back to the seat at the table. When I sat at the table and we were under duress, the first thing you want to think about, best practice, it's first your critical infrastructure. What keeps the lights on? Right? And, a lot of tools like force ranking come into play there. Tell me, out of the 40 people you have, tell me who your top 20 are. That absolutely no matter what happens, we can't get rid of these people because they're adding to that navigation between risk and opportunity. They're adding to the value of the organization, right? There's all sorts of tools in handling duress. In many cases, you as a leader, as a CEO, have to have a fundamental belief that you have the right business model for the future. If you don't, you've got other problems. But if you have a fundamental belief that you have a business model that, and this is a temporary thing, the best of all possible worlds, try selling this to Wall Street, is to retain your people, train them in ways that will make you more competitive during this period of this business downturn. So take the gap in things to do that you do every day, and instead of saying we don't need you anymore, say, how can we use you better and use this period of time to reinvest in the company, reinvest in the business model. And so hopefully you have one of those enlightened C-level teams that are looking at ways to go, what an opportunity. It's kind of like that old story of, you ever hear what Rockefeller did in the midst of the Depression?
He built something, didn't he?
Well, what happened, and people were astounded because everyone in the world was being Chicken Little. This is the end of the world as we know it.
After the Depression, right?
Yeah, right in the midst of the Depression. Stock market goes crazy. Businesses are closing. Things are boarded up right, left. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What does Rockefeller do? He starts building. So he's actually putting people to work in the midst where everyone's going, what does he see we don't see? Seriously.
A visionary.
That we don't see. Well, he's not a visionary. He's just a great businessman that knows these things goes in cycles, which is what wealth managers try to tell you when you go, what are you doing with my stock portfolio? And they go, just be calm. And you're going, I'm getting a new stock portfolio guy.
You're fired.
You're fired, right? Start over again. Sell everything. Put everything in the bank, right? As if you could time a marketplace. Well, you can't necessarily time a business life cycle either, but we have faith in the undergirding of our country, our dollar. If you have faith in the business model of the country and the business model of the market sector, you will reinvest. And you'll do what Rockefeller did, which is why he ended up owning half of New York City afterwards, right? So
crazy.
But
He saw it. He knew it.
But to be able to do that, you have to have the wherewithal to get capital to do it, right? And Rockefeller had that capital.
Wow. Little history lesson, folks, on the podcast. Listen.
Well, but also personally, right? So you shouldn't wait till you get laid off to be putting money in the bank. Don't take that extra trip to Hawaii. Don't spend money on that 60-inch screen. Make sure you're putting 10% every day out of your paycheck. And if you really want to buy off on the fact that everything you do impacts your world, set another contribution aside to nonprofits who are helping people who are have less advantage as you. So do your 10% rule every day, and you should have a year of savings in the bank that represents your income, right? Before you start going crazy with 60-inch screens and trips to Hawaii. Should have a year in the bank. Why do you want that? Because your Rockefeller moment may come, and that may be your time to take what you have and then reinvent how you're going to handle the future, right? And that's what Rockefeller did. And companies need to do that too, because everything goes in cycles.